Today we're going to talk about tire additive or tire prep, and it's a really complex subject which I could talk about for an hour or even more, but I don't want to bore you, so I figured I wanted to summarize it in a few shorter steps, which I will cover the basics of tire prep. And as you may know, most of the races that I attend these days, they are with a tire additive spec rule, so you're only allowed to use one type of additive for most races. And for some races, you're also allowed to use a brake cleaner to clean the tire. So you have the option to use the additive. For example, this one is the HUDY Red, the latest HUDY additive. And then you can use a brake cleaner to clean the tires. So you have those two liquids to work with only. And that gives you very few options to play with. However, since you're not allowed to use anything else, you have to take very well care of how you use those two liquids. So what you can play with is the cleaning of the tire, the duration of the additive, how long you put it on, how much you put on, how many times, and so on. And in the end, those three things can make a big difference, even though we all have to use the same additive. So that's what I'm going to try to explain. When it comes to cleaning of the tires, as I said, you have two options normally. I feel that when you clean the tires with a brake cleaner, you dry the tire out, you make it drier, and that can be especially useful at an event where the spec additive is oily. So for example, with ETS, we've been using an additive which is a little bit oilier, higher oil content, and it tends to make the tire surface a bit tacky or oily. And then it works good to clean it with a brake cleaner because it dries it out between the runs and also makes the tire stickier. However, for asphalt racing especially, cleaning with the brake cleaner seems to shorten the tire life a little bit. So if you're worried about the degrading of the tire, then it's a better option to use the tire additive itself to clean the tire, because it maintains the tire life a bit longer. And there's also certain conditions where actually cleaning with the tire additive gives you more grip, because you actually want the tire to be oilier. But it's really track specific, and it depends on the tire that you use. So it comes down to the track and the tire that you use, what will work better. You simply have to try both methods to see what works better. But from my experience, that's what I have to share, and that's some general advice. So before applying, shake the additive well before use to mix the oil with the softener agent which is inside of the additive. So you want both of those parts of the additive to be used. So make sure you always shake it. Always clean the sponge before use. This one is actually pretty clean. It's new, but usually there's a buildup of dust and old carpet and such on the sponge, which you want to get rid of. So always clean it before use. Then in this case, I'm just gonna clean the tire with the brake cleaner. Spray it onto a piece of tissue. These are the blue shop towels. They're car mechanic tissue, so they're really strong, really durable, and I really recommend these because they also soak up the liquid very well. So just make sure you clean the tire well. If the tire is new, I actually recommend cleaning it twice because of the mold agent that's on top of the rubber. Get rid of that. And tire additive timing. So the longer you apply the additive, the softer the tire will get. So it is a softener. It makes the tire softer. So for example, additive timing can be a useful tuning tool on carpet. You can use a staggered additive timing, so you can use a shorter additive timing on the front compared to the rear to make the car less edgy, especially at the start of the run. So if the car is too aggressive and you want to get rid of traction roll or something like that, you should use less additive timing in the front. Another trick you can use is to use not full front additive, but for example here you can see that I left the outer edge without additive, so using less front additive will have about the same effect. It will make the car less edgy and less prone to oversteering and traction rolling. So about tire warmers. Tire warmers is essential for asphalt racing for most conditions, and we often use a paper tissue in between the tire and the tire warmer cup. And why do we do this? First of all, we want to prevent the tire warmer from heating immediately onto the tire surface, because this will be very aggressive for the tire and it might actually damage the tire a little bit. The second reason is that when you put the tire inside of the cup like this, depending on the tire diameter, it might not fit perfectly. As you can see, it has a little bit of play actually. So what happens is you're gonna have an uneven spread of the heat onto the tire surface. So it might actually be touching the cup here and might not touch it here. So it's gonna be hotter in this spot here. But also when you apply the additive is gonna obviously sit on the tire. But when you have it on the car like this, all the additive is gonna run to the bottom and it's gonna drip down and sit at the bottom of the tire warmer, and that's not where you want it. You want it to be evenly distributed around the tire. So when you use the tissue, you put a tissue here. This is cut in a square to be enough for just one tire. So just push it inside of the warmer like that. So when you do that with the additive on it, it's gonna be evenly spread around the tire and it's gonna be more consistent that way. So one last and very important tip is, especially for asphalt racing, don't put your car down outside of the racing line, because this will ruin your perfect tire prep. Once the car is ready to go, ask somebody to bring your car up to the track. For example, if you have a qualifier, ask somebody to bring the car up there, set it down, not where it's dusty, but on a spot on the track where it's clean. So don't set it down and collect dust on your tires before the start of your run, because that will ruin your tire prep and the point of even applying the additive. So make sure you do that. Those small details can be crucial for how the tire is working, so pay attention to that. And finally, a lot of people ask me about the tire storage. So once the tires come off the track, they go in a plastic bag to seal them up. It has to be a sealed plastic bag so that the tires don't dry out between runs even, but especially between race days. So overnight especially, they need to go in a plastic bag to not dry out. And once they come off the track, I don't do anything to the tire. I don't clean it with any additive or brake cleaner or anything. Just I put them immediately in the bag. You can brush them off with a brush if you want, but don't apply anything to the tires. Just put them in the bag and leave them until the next time you're gonna use them. I think that's the basics, and next week we're gonna talk about tire prep for races where you have an open tire additive rule, so you can use any additive. And then you have a bit more options to consider, and I'm gonna talk about those.